Danite Radio. Welcome to the Counter Revolution.
They still don't build to stabilize their muscles, so injury occurs. And
there's like a lot of basketball players that come in as rookies and hurt themselves, and they've got to like learn how to jump all over again because they've been doing it wrong the whole time, and that's why they're getting hurt.
Yep.
There you go. Good to know.
Okay, we're in. Is this it?
We're started. We're going.
So, what's up, folks? Rock Dog here. Shadow there.
Shadow here.
We're got our special lefty guest, Hoger.
Resident commie.
The best part is he's like barely left, fairly moderate. We're like, our commie guest.
I like to just say I'm a cherry picker. Like, I pick and choose what I like from everywhere.
So what you represent is a different point of view, though, which is what we're trying to do on this show. We're not trying to
new perspective.
Because I have strong, heavy-handed opinions and a lot of passion behind them. So I like to
debate.
I like to get other people in here and just listen to what they have to say.
I like that.
So all that being said, and my intent is not to get you in trouble with your brother.
My brother. Oh, he's gonna text me anyway. I know you're listening to this, Cody, and I'm ready for it, dude.
I find it hilarious, the strife I'm causing, but it's not my intent.
Oh, no,
it's just
I don't have any strife with him. He might have strife for me, but
wait,
I love it. I laugh
every time. Are we doing the political thing? Before we get into that, can I tell a story?
That is the thing about Cody when he's mad at you. He's too funny sometimes to really.
Like, he gets pissed, but he's too funny, so I'm not mad. You be mad as you want.
Yeah. Anyways, what?
Can I tell a story before we get into it? You'll love it, dude.
It better not be a
Let's hear it.
I've been sitting on it for freaking 3 weeks, dude. And then you're like, oh, I'm too tired to do the podcast. I'm like, dang it.
I'm not too tired. I'm just like Satan kicked my ass today. So
okay.
Not living my best life.
So we've discussed it before on the podcast. I'm not a great hunter, correct?
Yes. Well, I don't know.
Based on the evidence of the number of animals that I killed.
If by great hunter,
how many? Like
0.
If the definition of great hunter is actually shooting something, yeah, you're horrible.
Okay, that's the purpose of this
but
story.
If being a great hunter is loving the outdoors and sticking to it,
and trying harder. Okay. So it was right after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm driving home in the middle of the night. I went to old Del Taco about 1 in the morning, and then I parked on BYU campus to eat it. And I took a little walk around BYU campus. I like to go up there when I'm stressed or whatever,
You said this was what day? Day after Christmas?
Like a couple days after Christmas.
So you're like only person there?
Yeah, only person on campus. There's a herd of deer on campus. I'm like, I'm going to see how close I can get to these deer. I'm going to practice my skills. So I sneak up on these deer, get within probably 10 or 12 yards, and I hit that thing with my burrito, dude.
You threw your burrito.
I'm the hunter of hunters, bro.
That is so funny because you can't hit them with anything sharp.
I don't think you're supposed to throw food at food.
It was dope, though. I was very proud.
That is dope.
That is pretty funny. When I was going to BYU, I was there for 3 semesters. And I'd be there like middle of the day, broad daylight, and I'd look over and a deer would be like 10 feet from me, just standing right next to the sidewalk, and I'd just stop and look at it, and it would just keep eating, like ignore me, pretend I wasn't there, and then it'd look at me, like take one step closer and keep eating, and I'm like,
yeah, that is the thing too. I was hunting deer that are like tame.
They're like pets.
It's like hunting in Yellowstone.
Stupid city girls feed them and stuff from the college. All right.
Well, stupid city boys throw burritos at them.
Yeah. We think they're hunters.
Yeah.
Just call me flour tortilla Jesus, I guess, huh? That's an inside joke.
Nice.
All right,
let's get into it.
There's
our why.
Hogan, what are your thoughts on what's going on? What do you want to talk about? There's a lot of stuff.
It's been a crazy week.
What do you got going? I know.
Like, I was thinking about it last night, and I was like, all this stuff has only been in 1 week. Like, Trump had that phone call with the Secretary of State of Georgia. There's the Georgia runoffs, the actual protests and riots, and Trump getting banned from Twitter. They took Parler off the App Store. Like, it's just been a weird week. A lot of stuff happened. I'm like, has it only been 1 week?
Yeah. Welcome to 2021. This is the new age.
But yeah, I think the last few months have just been chaos. Like,
sure.
Really stressful for having like no personal involvement in any of it. I just spend the day like doom scrolling social media, looking at everything like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Parler being taken off the App Store? Seems a little excessive to me.
That's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really care because I don't use Parler.
Sure.
I've always kind of seen like Parler was a place set up to say, like, come here and say the things that are against the terms of service of other websites, basically, you know, like say your thoughts without punishment or, you know, whatever.
Some places you go, they call that freedom of speech.
Well, yes.
Here's the thing about the weird thing
joke.
about Parler is they actually have stricter guidelines as far as like anything you can't say on primetime television you can't say on Parler.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and so it's like I think that I think it's good. I think it tends to be, just a wind tunnel.
You think Parler's good, or you think it's good that they got rid of Parler?
I'm indifferent. I don't really have an opinion either way. Like, if they would have kept it, I wouldn't have been mad.
But
them taking it down also doesn't make me mad.
So
it's kind of.
You said I think it's good. What do you think is good?
Oh, what I meant was, I think it's good for people to go there and feel that they can express themselves. But I think what tends to happen with environments like that is it just becomes a big wind tunnel. You know, it's generally people of the same thought process hearing their confirmation bias in the same place, and they go, it's like I go on Reddit a lot, and it's very easy to make Reddit like a very liberal or left-leaning wind tunnel to just hear like, here's why Trump is bad, here's why this conservative policy is bad, here's why this is good. Like, and it's the same with any social media. It's kind of what you cater it to. Sure. You have to go out of your way to hear other perspectives and bring them in. And I think that there's not a lot of other perspectives on Parler. I think it's a lot of the similar mindset.
Sure. Yeah. And I have a Parler account. I never use it. But it's kind of hard when your life's filled with two other social medias. You're like, man, do I want to add another to this pile, you know?
Yeah, I think it's it's really successful for people who don't go on any other social media. And
I wonder and I know that Facebook is not a wind tunnel yet, but are they pushing it towards that? The more conservatives they.
Well, I think it's more of it's a wind tunnel based on who you're friends with.
Sure.
Like if I go on there and I want to follow news sites, I can pick and choose which ones I want to follow, and it could be, a little of everything, or it could be just like local news. It could be just liberal news. It could be whatever you want it to be, or it could just be, I live in Utah. Most of my friends on here are from Utah. Most of those friends that I have on here are conservative. I hear their viewpoints, and so it becomes a wind tunnel in that fashion. So it's not necessarily that you've made it that, but it's by nature of your environment and who you've chosen to be your friends. It can become that. Not that it is for sure that.
Right.
That's the case with all political thought, though, not just social media.
Yeah, for sure.
You're a product of the environment you surround yourself with. So then that begs the question, how do you feel about Donald Trump being the prime example, people being banned from Twitter and banned from Facebook?
It's a tough circumstance because I feel like Donald Trump is a special example. A lot of it at first I was like, okay, I don't know if I support removing him outright. I'm sure Twitter's already personally monitoring each of his tweets anyway. It would have been easy to just say, why don't we let him post what he wants? And if it's a dangerous tweet, we can mark it as such like we've been doing. Their statement on it was actually pretty good. I don't know if either of you read it. It's pretty long. It's like a big article that they wrote essentially explaining why.
Give us the bullet points, bro.
Let me refresh my memory. I read it the other day, just briefly, skimmed it.
So we have, let's see. If I think it's crazy too. I guess my question would be, what dangerous tweets are you referring to?
I don't know. And that's what I mean. If they're saying, like, based on our terms of service, as a private company, they have the right to say, these are our terms of service to use our program. And people can, if they disagree with that, they can fight that. They have a court system set up to do that. But they can say, these are our rules that you have to abide by. And I think that in setting those rules, it has to leave a lot of gray area because you can't define, you cannot say these exact words or people will figure out ways to say the same thing and work around it.
So does their statement say what he violated? What terms of service he violated?
Yeah, here was the main thought at the beginning. This was in their overview. It's the last paragraph of their overview on their Twitter blog. And it says, due to ongoing tensions in the United States as an uptick in the global conversation in regards to the people who violently stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, these two tweets must be read in the context of broader events in the country and the ways in which the president's statements can be mobilized by different audiences, including to incite violence, as well as in the context of the pattern of behavior from this account in recent weeks. After assessing the language in these tweets against our glorification of violence policy, we have determined that these tweets are in violation of the glorification of violence policy and that the user @RealDonaldTrump should be immediately permanently suspended from the service.
What were the tweets?
It was the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first, and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. And then the second was, to all of those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th.
Okay.
What did either of those tweets have to do with the storming of the Capitol?
Well, both of these were tweeted on January 8th. So this was following the storming of the Capitol. And their thoughts were in the phrasing of him saying, these people who voted for me will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. They thought that that's not directly encouraging violence, but could be interpreted by some to encourage them to make choices that would lead to violence.
So at the risk of asking you to defend Twitter's policy, which I'm not asking you to do, but does it bother you at all that the Ayatollah Khomeini can get on Twitter and say death to the great Satan and death to the little Satan, but Trump can't get on and say, look, 70 million people feel like they got cheated and disrespected here? Not to mention that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, the people who have 1.1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps, also has a Twitter account.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where I think it definitely is a conversation worth having, and I think it's something that they need to look into. I think the key reason they've done this now is the timing of it and saying there's been violence, he's tweeting these things, could they encourage further violence? And they have to kind of weigh that and say, yes, it could. No, it couldn't. Do we allow him to keep tweeting and see if it escalates further?
Were there any Black Lives Matter accounts suspended when, say, after David Dorn was murdered during the?
It's a good question.
Riots?
I don't know specifically. I'm sure that there were, because I've heard of a lot of accounts just being banned, especially in that time. And I think Twitter has a pretty active team investigating that, but yeah, I don't know for sure.
I think the example that comes to my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong by all means, Sean King was fairly outspoken for violence on Twitter when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. And we discussed it at the time.
Wait. Talcum X?
Talcum X.
Sorry, I can't stand that guy. Continue.
I also don't really like.
Well,
Sean King very much.
I just bring him up for the example in that it's my understanding he was never banned for violence. There was an incident he was banned for, or his account was suspended for sharing private emails without the other person's consent.
Yeah, I believe currently he does not have an account. I'm trying to pull it up and I can't find it.
Did he start his own? Well, he was doing something, or maybe
He's
they were
technically a journalist.
Or did they?
He writes for
Does he?
Washington Post.
Oh,
or
maybe
something.
he started his own news media corporation. I think that's probably what it was.
I don't know.
The Star
Maybe.
News or something.
Anyway,
Sorry.
the point is, it's my understanding he had some fairly outspoken and outlandish tweets about tearing down the system, creating an entirely new system, which in my brain is much more insightful of violence than.
Oh no, he does have Twitter. I just spelled his name wrong. But yeah, I remember.
How'd you spell it? Oh, Sean? Did you spell Sean?
I spelled it. Yeah, I spelled it SEAN.
But the point is, it's my understanding there was no suspension of his account when he was very much inciting violence, and that to me is alarming because it's not across the board. They're anti-violence. They're anti. Donald Trump supporters
from the
violence.
right, maybe.
Sure.
Violence from the right, which.
And technically, I mean, really, you look at Donald Trump, it's not exactly violence from the right. But.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced those tweets were inciting violence either, and that's kind of my problem with it. I read that, and in no way do I think, you know what, I should burn a building down now. That's not the
Well, I
reaction
mean, did you ever feel that way? Like when they were storming the Capitol,
Sometimes
were you saying, yes, burn it down?
Sometimes
or...
I stand in the DMV and I'm like, I should burn this building down.
That's fair.
And I would much prefer they burn down the Capitol than they burn down a Target in Kenosha.
Why is that?
Kenosha, Wisconsin? You wouldn't?
You would rather burn down the Capitol than a
for
Target?
100%.
For sure.
Why is that?
The Capitol burning it down really doesn't harm anybody's livelihood. The Capitol is a symbol.
Even the senators in the Capitol could just vote from afar.
Yeah, and when you're attacking a building in the public sector, it's the repairs on that building are already paid for. It's not going to affect our taxes in any way. It's already paid for by the government, and those repairs will be done if that's what needs to happen. Where when you're attacking a private business, that's somebody's livelihood that you're ruining, who generally is unrelated to. It's more insightful of mob rule to burn down private business than it is to burn down buildings.
I would say
in the public
small
sector.
businesses, yes, but a large corporation like Target that's nationwide
even
and
Target,
possibly
it
international,
applies
I
to the private sector in all facets. You can't be like, oh, burn down big businesses no matter what because it's unfair.
Yeah,
to
and
all
that's I
private
want to make that clear.
businesses.
That's not my. I'm not saying like
Right.
I'm totally cool with it. Like Target deserved to get burned down or anything like that. I'm not on that side.
How do you? I mean, there has to be decisions made by senators that you or just think are outrageous and sell out the country. I mean, they're all in bed with lobbyists. I mean, it's a disgusting wasteland up there. Whether you are a Trump fan or not. You know?
And I think on any side, I think there's very few
I'm definitely
politicians that actually
not calling
stand by
for
that.
violence against the Capitol building yet.
right.
My line is a lot farther than some of these people. I mean, when they start kicking in doors for political beliefs, that's when my violence line has been crossed, and I'll start burning buildings down myself. But I don't think I'll ever burn down a Target, you know?
Yeah.
So I just think the selling out of the American people that building represents for the past 50 years, whether you're on the left or the right, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard would agree with me 100% that that building is full of scum, you know, and that would be a prime place to take out your frustration. And I even said during the Black Lives Matter riots, these people feel disenfranchised. I think that they might be. I said that I think that they might be a little misled as far as the numbers go. I don't feel like cops are hunting black people, and if I thought cops were hunting black people, I'd be there burning stuff down as well, but not a Target, you know, not a I mean, I wouldn't burn down Main Street in Payson.
Right.
I'd take 2 blocks over and burn down the police station, you know, if I felt like they were hunting black people.
Now the government's got you on some list.
Oh,
like, watch
dude,
this guy.
We've been on a list for a long time, bro.
I doubt it. We have 70 followers on our good episodes.
They're all FBI agents.
Yeah, probably. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
We know you're acquired by your career, but we're happy to have you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too, is it's like, it's one of those circumstances that it's like you look at some of the largest peaceful protests. Like, the largest single-day event was the Women's March in 2017, the day of Donald Trump's inauguration. There was like 3 million people marching at the same time. Mm-hmm. And as far as I'm aware, I don't know of any instances of direct change that came as a correlation from that.
Sure.
Like, I know it was great for bringing awareness to the cause. I think it was inspirational to a lot of people there, especially women, to, you know, run for public office or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's like I can't point to any laws that changed as a result.
Sure.
So it's like I understand why people riot, that they do it to, you know, increase attention to whatever the cause is, whether it be, you know, the riots that took place as a result of George Floyd's death or the riot at the Capitol. It brings a lot of attention to your cause, but I think each of the individuals there needs to be willing to take their personal responsibility and saying, like, people were hurt because I was involved in this, or businesses or, you know, federal offices were damaged because of this. I think it's just...
I don't know. I didn't get the impression that the damage was that bad. I saw some broken windows and
broken
some stolen
windows.
I mean, it's horrific that cop was killed. They hit him over the head with a fire extinguisher.
That's like just insane to me.
That's brutal.
I'm like, that's like, if I had heard he was shot by somebody there, like the security guard that was shot during the Black Lives Matter protests, it's like, that's wrong. They had a gun, but it's like, grabbing a fire extinguisher and bludgeoning a cop over the head, that's like a next level.
There's a video of a guy, they take like an aluminum rim from a car and hit a cop over the head with it. They hit him over the head with it in the Black Lives Matter movement or protests. But, I mean, that's part of the job, really. And that's a horrific thing to see happen. And that girl that got shot is terrible as well. I think that they missed an opportunity by letting it get violent. There weren't any goals. You know, if you're going to have violence, you have to have goals behind the violence. At least Antifa and Black Lives Matter set up an autonomous zone. You know, there was a goal there. It worked. It did stuff. I mean, it went horribly, but at least they set something up.
There were some outcomes as a result.
But
violence
honestly
should be used with the precision of a surgeon.
You're
cutting something open. You're cutting something out with the goal of fixing.
Especially with how easy it was to get into the Capitol. If all those people had sworn to be peaceful, marched into that Capitol and said, "We're not leaving until we get the 10-day audit," it would have been far more effective and probably would have gotten what they wanted.
And I think
slowly
initially,
won over
like, you see some of the videos, it's like
the hearts
there's
and
the
minds.
cop at the door that lets them in. He's like taking selfies with people. Initially, some of the protesters are marching. They're like going through the roped area. And I saw a bunch of
they
memes.
line
They're
up,
like, they're inside of the ropes. Why didn't they just rope off the front of the building?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, I think it was once they got further in, it was some of the more radical in the group. There's like pictures of the guy who's going through and he's got zip ties in his hand. Have you guys seen that? Mm-mm. He's like, I think I have it.
And I think that it would have been easy.
Crazy.
It would have been easy to foil that extremist segment of that group by saying, "Hey, arrest this man. He's committing violence, and that's not what we're here for." You know, you as the group has to turn over the violent aspects of your movement, and then all they had to do was occupy the Capitol. One way or another, they'd either would have gotten what they wanted, or they would have got the crap kicked out of them, tear gassed and maced and drug out of the building. And that would have lended more to their cause than what happened. You know, the fact that everyone has to think about a cop getting hit over the head with a fire extinguisher and dying from it is not helping the cause.
And part of the problem, it seems like, is there's nobody directing traffic. There's not
a Martin Luther King.
Yeah, there's no Martin Luther King.
Right.
Either movement.
There's no Gandhi. There's nobody who's standing here like, look, these are our goals. This is how we're going to accomplish it. And it kind of comes back to the Twitter thing. As much as you want to pin it on Donald Trump, he's not there directing traffic. At no point did he say, let's burn this building down because here's what we're going to get out of it. His devout followers did that, or believe whatever you will. His devout followers did that, and they are the ones that went in there and made that choice to burn down the Capitol. And I use that loosely. It didn't even get burned down.
Right.
But there's nobody to direct traffic. There's nobody to say, listen, if you step out of line, you're done. You have ruined our movement. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're accomplishing. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to march through there. And if a policeman hits us, we're going to keep marching. And we're going to watch that guy fall. That was Martin Luther King's whole thing. Aggressively nonviolent protest.
Right. So here's that picture. It's kind of blurry, but it's a man in the, I don't know what part of the Capitol that's in.
In the stadium
One of the
seating.
mediums. He's got these zip ties in his hands. And there we go. That's the picture.
And what was he doing with them?
You can see they've got loops in them.
Yeah, they're arresting zip ties.
Yeah, they're handcuffed. So it's like there were some people in there that seemed to have had a goal, like
for sure,
take whoever we can get as a hostage, or whatever the circumstances. Sure. And that's, like I said, I don't think everybody going in there was this way. You could see there were several ladies in their 70s that were just standing inside the Capitol.
A lot of them were kind of like, oh, they're letting us in. I guess we'll just go in.
Yeah,
here,
they were just walking in.
For sure.
But I definitely think there were some of the more extreme groups in these crowds that were like they had a set goal in mind. And,
sure.
There was one reporter I saw that said that he was there in the crowd just filming. This was before they had gotten into the Capitol, and had heard several people in the crowd saying they wanted to get Mike Pence and execute him because he turned his back on Donald Trump. He's like, I heard it once, and I was like, man, that's crazy. And then he was like walking, and it was like 10 minutes later in a different part of the crowd, a different person said it, and then he heard it like another time. So he said there were multiple people that were saying these things. Whether they were actually ready to take action and go in to try to find him, that's a different story. I don't know.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I think we beat that one to death.
Yeah.
We've got
just crazy.
Just
crazy
it is
circumstances.
Crazy. Your boys own everything, bro, up there.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to from a Democrat-controlled?
I'm looking for them $2,000 checks, baby. Now, that's one of those things that I'm like, personally, the stimulus checks don't affect me. We're in a good enough position where it's like, we don't need them, but I'm like, yeah, it's great. It's helpful.
Pay down some debt, sure.
Yeah. And especially, and I'm not looking for them to make it like every
Who
month
stopped?
or,
So
you
it
know.
was Mitch McConnell that stopped the $2,000 checks. But
Yeah.
do you give Trump any credit for fighting for him?
I thought that when he came out and said that, I was like,
Yeah.
if they pass this now because Donald Trump is on their side, I will never say a bad thing about him again.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
I was like, that's insane. But I think that his thought was, if he pushed for it, maybe it might bring a few more people onto like his side and his, whatever he's going for. But I think ultimately his goal in doing that was to try and help the Georgia elections. That he was backing the $2,000 checks to try and boost votership for the Republican candidates. And I think Mitch McConnell turning it down, maybe to a small percentage, hurt their chances in the voting.
You don't think that? I mean, that doesn't give you any pause, second guessing your hatred of Trump when Mitch McConnell, an entrenched Republican,
Oh no!
destroys
I didn't say
his,
I wouldn't stop hating him.
destroys his own party. No, but destroys his own party's chance in Georgia in order to just resist this man.
No, I'm not saying it's that at all. Like, I wanted him to like sabotage the vote or whatever. But that's my thoughts.
You want
looking
no wait.
back
You
on
wanted what? I don't understand. You didn't want who to sabotage what votes?
it. Like either way, I wasn't looking at it for saying like, oh, this is really good. Trump will sabotage the Georgia elections with this.
No, but Trump didn't. Mitch McConnell did, is what I'm saying. And Mitch McConnell, in his resistance to this man, not only cost his own party possibly the election in Georgia, but then didn't get through the $2,000 stimulus that you seem
Mitch
to think
McConnell's
you need.
goal in stopping the vote was he wanted changes made from the Democrats. He wanted it to be like for them to come together and agree on his terms and him say, we can vote on these $2,000 checks, but we need the Democrats in the Senate to vote against this. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was he had like a couple of
But that was in
caveats to it.
opposition to the leader of his party, being Donald Trump, saying pass $2,000 stimulus. That was Trump fighting his establishment party for goals that you would like to see happen. But
Sure.
that doesn't give you any pause on hating the man. You don't give him a little credit for that.
I said, if he would have gotten that passed.
He's fought the Republican Party and the Democratic Party his whole presidency.
I think that there's just a lot to it,
And how did Mitt Romney vote? Did he vote for the $2,000 stimulus?
They didn't vote on it in the Senate.
And what did he say anything about it, or was he just quiet about it?
I don't know.
I find it hard when guys like you, pro stimulus, and I'm anti-stimulus. I think it's a bad idea, but I'm especially anti-stimulus when we're sending it for gender studies in Pakistan and
Right.
all
See,
that
and
crap.
that's what I
But
wanted to say. Was
Trump's
I'm not
like, if-
for socializing it. I'm
if
not for
we're-
saying let's do this every month for
Yeah,
the rest of
sure.
time.
It
Like-
sets a bad precedent to do it once, though.
For
I think
sure.
is the problem.
And I think that's my main point is they should have said from the beginning, we're going to do this until the pandemic ends and it's going to be this small amount and bring the barrier down for what qualifies for getting that check as far as like earnings go or whatever. Or they needed to just say, we're not going to do anything at all.
Right, but let's pull it back. So, but you're for that, right? You're for until COVID-19 is over. You're for a stimulus, right? And Trump has been lockstep. He agrees. Mm-hmm. But you still hate the man so bad that you think he should be off Twitter. And I mean, you can't even give him
like I
credit
said,
for that?
I do give him credit for
Okay.
that.
All
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
There you go. That's all I want.
said, if him standing up for it would have gotten it passed, I would have been blown away. Like
Sure.
if Mitch McConnell said, no, we're not doing it, and Trump comes out and says, I want you to support this, and they said, okay, we'll do it, and they voted on it and passed it.
Yeah, but they didn't
I would
have
have
to because
been
he
like-
was already voted out, right?
Right.
You know, so they
And
don't-
that's
they
the
don't
thing
have
is
to
it's
follow
like
anything.
they kind of felt like, well, now we have no obligation to him.
Sure.
Now, Mitch McConnell is the leader.
And
of
do
our
you
party.
think Joe Biden will get the $2,000? Because he said to Georgians, "You want $2,000? Get these guys."
Yeah, I think with Congress now, they likely will. I think they'll vote on it for sure, whether it'll pass or not. I don't know if every Democrat is in support of it, but
What
I think
else?
if
What
they
else is
vote
it
on
for?
it, I likely think
Long term, how are they going to fix this country?
I think some of the ways that I hope to see is mostly in our foreign relations. At the moment, I wouldn't say that the U.S. really has any strong ally. I think we have allies, but I think a lot of them are questioning their relationship with the United States.
Sure. So not to argue with you, but I feel like long-term allies are a bad thing. I wish we weren't in the UN. So that's a bad thing for me, or that's a good thing for me that we don't have any strong allies. But for clarity's sake, you think that we need to be more diplomatically involved in the world, and
Yeah. And I think there were a lot of good things that Trump did. Like I think him being able to almost start a fight with Kim Jong-un, and then like the next month be like setting up talks to go
Sure.
and visit him and meet with him face to face. I don't know the details of their talks, obviously, but I think that that's impressive.
Sure.
I give him credit there for sure.
Who are you looking for to be an ally? Who would you?
I think it's mostly the other like first world countries that we're more closely aligned with, like with Canada, the UK, France, Germany.
And you feel like Trump's ruined relations with them,
Yeah.
and so.
Maybe with the
I guess-
UK, the UK is kind of iffy because Boris Johnson is pretty close to Trump in a lot of his policies and his thought process.
I guess my
But
question is, what would the Democrats do different?
I think like I said, it's just mending any parts of those relationships where it's not.
I guess what did Trump do? I haven't heard of a weakening in allegiance with. Well, France has always kind of been on the edge of communism, and they almost sided with Russia a few times during the Cold War. I mean, they haven't been the greatest ally.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't side with us in Afghanistan or Iraq, which turns out they were probably right. But they did side with us in Syria, which was weird. But that also goes back to the Sykes-Picot Treaty, where all the European countries in America divided up the Middle East, and France was kind of put in charge of Syria. And the U.S. was put in charge of Iraq and Afghanistan, which is all kind of twisted and crappy. But I don't know. That's just interesting to me that you feel like our allegiances have been weakened with Europe so much.
Well, I think even this past week is a good example of that, in seeing the rioters storming the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all of those foreign leaders spoke out and agreed that Trump had some part in encouraging the violence.
Yeah,
Not that he caused
those.
it or that he
Sure.
was personally saying, like, you need to do this, but, his speech just before the morning of, he said the word fight or fighting over 20 times.
Yeah, I agree. He failed to calm tensions.
Yeah, and I think where he's
and
saying fight, he's not clear in. We
I
need to
honestly
fight on this front.
think he might have expected more of his followers, in that he would have expected more of okay, let's occupy the Capitol unviolently.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't realize the lack of organization among his followers, because he expects. I mean, honestly, he hires great people around him that causes things to happen appropriately.
Yeah.
So he almost looks at his 70,000 followers as employees, like they're just going to do what he wants to have happen because he's gone through and rigorously vetted these people, and they will make a right decision. When 70 million people, sometimes the bad eggs rise to the top, obviously.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I find that. So yeah, I mean, he has some culpability. But at the same time, he wasn't calling for violence, I don't think, in my mind. I mean, I saw nothing that said. I mean, he's been fighting since he lost the election, in his mind, and no one's thrown any punches. So when he says fight, he means let's keep doing what we're doing legally according to the Constitution.
And he did tweet about, we're the party of law and order, let's maintain law and order.
Did you
You
guys
can do it how
see?
you will.
I guess back to the Twitter thing. Like India is I don't know what they're doing, but they're sanctioning Twitter in their country.
India's got pretty strict laws for all social
because
media.
if they can ban the leader of the free world, who can't they ban? Like that is a ton of power that people don't realize that Twitter has. You know, people see it as like, oh, they're a private company, they can do whatever they want. Sure, but look at the ramifications of what they are doing. You know, if they have that much power, it might be time to break up that company.
Yeah, I agree. I think tech companies are much too large.
Sure.
That was one of the things I really liked about Andrew Yang, who was running for candidacy, was his big platform is tech companies are way too large. And most of our senators are in their 60s, 70s, 80s. They don't know a lot about how fast technology is moving.
Sure.
And he said that, in the 80s and 90s, they had people with cabinet responsibilities to instruct the senators on what was happening. And then they got rid of them, and now it's up to the tech companies to instruct the senators.
Brilliant.
So that was what I really liked about him, was that
tech companies.
I know Facebook to go in and Mark Zuckerberg drinking his water like a robot, being like, "We're not doing anything wrong."
You don't even know how it works.
Yeah.
Dude, the best is Jack Dorsey though, dude. He like pops in the frame like he just woke up from a
He looks
3-day
he just
weed
woke up
bender
all the time.
It's so funny.
Yeah, I don't, and that's the thing is, I'm like, I agree that they probably are getting much too big, especially companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon, these big ones that are just collecting and selling tons of data that we don't even realize.
Sure.
And I definitely think that something needs to be done and said about it. But it's also one of those things where it's like, Twitter's a social media platform. It's kind of within the rights of a private company to say what can and can't be said on their platform. And
that's not.
It's just like any business to say
that's
we
not
can
true,
refuse
though.
right to service to any person at any time for any reason.
That's not true, though. First of all, a baker can't refuse it to bake a cake for
Yes,
a gay
they
wedding.
can.
They didn't.
They did.
And they got fined
No.
and put out of business. They got fined
The
like
Supreme Court
$200,000.
ruled that it was in favor and that
So-
it was within their right as a private
but
company to deny
that's
for a gay
irrelevant.
wedding.
That's irrelevant anyways, because the baker doesn't have Section 230 protections that spells them out as a platform. So they have to be a platform for anyone within reason, free speech. I didn't see any violence in either of those tweets that Trump tweeted that got him banned from social media. And so according to Section 230, they have to leave him on there because they can't start publishing. So if they start editorializing, they become a publisher, they open themselves up to lawsuits. So now they're having the best of both worlds. Oh, we can't be sued for anything, and we can pick and choose what we put on our platform. That makes them a publisher, not a platform.
Right.
It's the same as the phone company can't not sell David Duke a cell phone. Or the power company can't not sell David Duke power for his house in Louisiana.
Yeah.
They have to sell it as long as he's making payments, right? As long as he's following the terms of agreement, which you can say Trump violated the terms of agreement, but what about the Ayatollah Khomeini, who actually calls for violence against a race of people and still has his thing?
No, and that's where I agree. I think that, it's great that Twitter wants to take a stand, but I think those are the huge things. Is it needs to be across the board.
Sure.
And if it's whatever side, if it's somebody who is
Agreed.
a Black Lives Matter organizer who's saying whatever, encouraging violence.
Yeah.
Sure, it definitely should
or
be.
the
And I think it
Ayatollah.
also
Agreed.
should be looked into as far as how much power we've given tech companies that have grown so fast.
Sure.
And that it's almost as if legislation moves too slowly to correct what these companies can do.
Well, and also just saying the words, a private company is censoring the sitting president of the United States, that's alarming.
That is alarming.
Like,
That is.
agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. That is alarming. You could, I personally hate Woodrow Wilson. A tech company silencing him would freak me out.
For sure. Yeah, I don't want Obama off of Twitter.
Right.
I'd rather know what my enemy's saying, though, you know? And yes, I find Obama my enemy.
I saw somebody, they said it as a joke, but they're like, I don't like Trump not having a Twitter because I don't know how unhinged he is at the moment.
Exactly.
You don't know what he's thinking about on his freaking gold toilet, dude.
And I think one of the things, too, one of the reasons that it hasn't really bothered me is the White House has a press room right next to the Oval Office. Cameras were running 24/7. If he has anything he wants to say, it's at his disposal.
For 10 more days.
Yeah. So...
And I mean, like Trump or not, but he started a movement. And he's still the leader of that movement. So now we don't know what the leader of a movement with potentially 70 million followers.
70 million potentially violent followers is saying.
So
well, I don't know how many of those.
It won't be 70, But even if it, 1 million violent people is a large number of violent people.
And they're not hiding him from them. That's the thing. He'll have ways to talk to him. He'll find ways to,
I'm sure
to speak with him.
Sending out his emails or something.
So that's the point, though. What you've done is silence him, and if you're against him, you're silenced him, and you have no idea what's going on. What's going to happen?
You can't clean a house if you can't see the dirt. It's hard to.
It's one of those things where I'm like, I would love to have just been a fly on the wall in like the meeting rooms of these large tech companies discussing like, do we do this? Do we not? Like,
yeah.
And I think that's exactly like you said, that tech companies are incredibly big and have very little real regulation. Like, one of my biggest issues with YouTube is the amount of content they have for children that's not regulated, like Saturday morning cartoons on a network are. On a network, you're required to do certain things. You can only show certain commercials. They can't be targeted toward children in a certain way. Like, they can't tell them to go out and buy something. They have to say this, or they say, if you want to buy it, you have to be 18 years or older.
Plus the weird stuff that algorithms pull up for kids, like next in line. So, like, kids will watch a kid's show all the way through. The algorithm pulls up something like adults pretending like dolls are killing each other, and like, it's crazy the stuff.
Or
that,
like
that
these
pops
YouTube
up
prank channels
YouTube or
where
Netflix?
YouTube.
Oh, interesting.
YouTube prank channels where they're like pranking my family that I was killed by a burglar, and they're like dead in the bathroom with fake blood all over, and it's like,
and I don't want regulation. I know better than to leave YouTube on in front of my kids. But I do want there should be transparency there for sure. You can't just say, well, they're a private company, they can do whatever they want. Like, yeah, but I got to know. I have to know. And fortunately for me, I'm a YouTube junkie, so I know what pops up in YouTube. But let's shift away from this again. Yeah. So we've got stimulus. You think we need more stimulus? That you think?
Well, that's one that again, I'm like, I think there are people that would be great.
I'm not saying you need it.
Yeah.
I'm saying you feel like that there are people that need stimulus, and you feel like the Democrats will pass that. And then the next one is mending allegiances to other countries.
That's what I'd hope to see. And
Alliances.
to what extent, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I think, and a lot of these things that I have thoughts on are not necessarily ones that I'm like driving for, but that I think we will see. I think we'll see changes to that.
What else? What else?
Biden's made statements about immediately rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. And that's one that I think there can be benefits to, but whether that's necessary, I don't really know, because the Paris Climate Accord is mainly just, these are our climate goals, and we're going to be accountable to you guys that we will seek to achieve them.
What are the benefits of the Paris Climate Accords?
I think that it's
accountability.
Saying, accountability to the other countries.
Have you? I read an article that says since we've left the Paris Climate Accords, we've actually dropped emissions more than any other country in the Paris
and I've definitely
Climate
seen that in 2020. I think it was like the largest decrease we've seen in
But
quite a
that
while,
didn't come
which
from,
is great.
That didn't come from any sort of regulation. It didn't come from anything like that. It came from fracking and the use of
and that's one of those
natural gas
another one of
over
those
coal.
things that I think there's pros and cons to, and I think it's likely going to happen, but it's not one of the things that I'm like put that on the ballot or
Well, I guess. Well, I'm not asking that. I want to know what you want to have happen out of this. So
Man.
we want to hear from you as a
I'll tell you what.
liberal.
When Barack Obama was president, I did not care about politics. I love to be able to not go back to not caring about politics.
Okay.
That would be dope.
I'm like, I didn't care. I didn't know what was going on.
So you've activated in order to resist Trump.
No, but I think it's been more like when Donald Trump was elected, I was actually happy. I didn't vote for him, but like even still to this day, the idea of Hillary Clinton winning the presidency is like
Appalling.
I don't know.
What's
It kinda
bad about
freaks me
Hillary
out.
Clinton?
Who did you vote for also?
I voted
Just out of
for.
curiosity.
I think I said this one of the times I was on before, but I voted for Evan McMullen.
Yeah.
I regret doing that to this day.
What's
Really?
Oh yeah, I hate that.
what's bad
I think
about
if I went back, if I had to do it again, knowing what I know now, I would probably still vote for Evan McMullen, because
Interesting.
So what shift? You were happy, and what shifted you? Why weren't you happy anymore when Trump got elected?
I think it's just seeing a lot of. It's not necessarily what Trump has done, but how he's done it. I think that he has been one of the largest instigators of divisiveness in the country. Mm-hmm. And the country was already very divided before. Like, if you look at divisions among Congress during Barack Obama's presidency, that was the most divided they had been at any point in the country's history since the Civil War. So I don't think that he was the cause of the division, but I think that he did a lot in his statements to help further the division. That, if anything came up, if there were questions, it was always first thing like points to the left. Well, the left did this. And then it leads the left to respond, well, the right did this. Donald Trump did this. And then it became the constant message that neither side could talk about anything without throwing stones at the other side.
He did a lot of that towards Mitch McConnell, though, too, and the Republicans in the Senate.
did, yeah.
He did a lot of. I mean, he just argued with everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, especially and you look at people like Lindsey Graham, who, when Donald Trump was running and was going into the primaries, Lindsey Graham was saying that Donald Trump is the most dangerous thing that could happen to the Republican Party and blah, blah, blah. And Ted Cruz as well. Donald Trump called Ted Cruz's wife a dog on the debate stage in front of his face, and then a month later, Ted Cruz is at his back, loves everything he's doing.
Why is that a bad thing?
Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Well, he's saying 1 week, he's like, in the debates, he was saying, Donald Trump will do nothing good for this country. You'll see nothing good come of it.
I didn't hear him say
Donald
anything
Trump's
like
making
that.
personal attacks at him. And then
a
a week later, he throws his support behind him and hasn't looked back since.
I agreed with Ted Cruz that I didn't think Trump would do anything good. And then he changed my mind himself.
And what do you feel he's done to change your mind? What
Got
are
us,
some of
got
the-
us out of the Paris Climate Accords.
Okay.
Fractured our alliances with other countries. Stood up to communist China.
Historic
Appointed
peace deals in the Middle East.
Yeah, the historic peace deals in the Middle East. Appointed Nikki Haley to the UN. Moved Israel's capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, like every president has promised to do. And I don't like his stimulus things. I don't like that. I don't like the socialized health care that he came out with, or not health care, child care.
Bump stock ban.
The bump stock ban, I was not a fan of. But as far as him trying to pull us out of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, he was very outspoken against both those things. He fought with his generals constantly on those things.
Yeah.
He's the only president since Bush to not entangle us in a foreign war. He did do
George
some.
Bush Sr.
He did do some drone striking that I wasn't a huge fan of, but he killed a really bad dude, so I wasn't exactly devastated to see the guy go.
Right.
Yeah, I was of the. I mean, Trump was a freaking Hillary Clinton donor, bro, and I was like, I didn't vote for him. I voted for him this time, but I didn't last time. I was like, yeah, right. I'm not going to vote for this guy that's donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign, like upwards of like $250,000, you know? But then he surprised me with all these things that he did. And then, and not only that, but he exposed, the Republican Party's done because of him. Yeah. They will not win.
I definitely
think
they
will not win another election.
The Republican Party has divided itself really severely between like the heavily supportive of Trump and the like Republicans that are now, especially after all this, have like completely turned their back on him.
So I'd rather hold my nose and vote for a guy that's going to do stimulus packages, that's going to save money not fighting a bunch of foreign wars, that's going to save money not paying the Paris Climate Accords. It cost every country money to join that crap. Mm-hmm. He defunded the UN Council on Climate Change. That's all saving Americans money. So I don't like the stimulus crap, but I'll take the bad with the good for sure.
And I feel like in those circumstances where it's only happening occasionally, if it's coming from tax money received by the government and they're just giving me back my own money, then absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was one of the places where
when they give it to us, for sure.
Like Andrew Yang's main platform was a big thing on the universal basic income and wanting to get that put in place, but letting it come from the taxes of, the large tech companies that were evading the system anyway.
Sure.
And saying like, we're going to tax them because they've been taking all these loopholes, and then we're going to use that money to give back to the people.
Well, and he's looking at it like, which is really brilliant. He's looking at it like they're using our data that they should be paying us for anyways. So we just be getting paid for that data that they're basically stealing and making money off of.
Exactly.
And not exactly stealing because we're giving it to them, We're suckers.
Most of these companies will tell you can opt out at any time.
Yeah. So, where was I? What were we talking about before that? What happened? Where did we go? Where did we go? I know.
UN.
So what I was going to say was still, why not just drop taxes to a reasonable, instead of, which is proven to stimulate economies. Even Soviet Russia, when they fell, figured out 13% flat tax is the way to go. Mm-hmm. That's what they do over there. They attract plenty of business. And we could attract even more because we have a stronger workforce. We have far more resources.
Right.
Probably the same on resources, but
I think we have more resources than Russia does.
As far as like workforce goes, especially we do. Not to mention we're on top of the world as far as technology goes and all that for now.
Yeah, and in some places, pretty much every other first world country has better internet infrastructure than the United States has.
I've never heard that, but you're probably
We have, of almost all of the countries, we have like the slowest average.
Really?
And the less accessibility compared to the others.
Interesting.
In the developed world.
So, but either way, I just think it doesn't make any sense to me to take the money then give it back. That's just weird for me. So, especially when dropping taxes always proves to bring up unemployment, which it did for the Trumpster, and then COVID hit, and I think, and I'll be frank with you, and we've talked about this before. I didn't like his handling of the COVID thing. I think he should have said, no, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Protect the elderly, protect the vulnerable, just keep everything open. He should never have recommended, let's shut this stuff down. He never should have recommended that, in my mind. And I'm sure you disagree, but I don't think I think he was foolish in that. So I will give him credit for bad things as well, you know.
Yeah.
So what else, bro? What do you want? What do you see coming? Good.
I don't know, dude. This is your show.
I know. That's why we had you on, bro. You're our
What
voice.
else? What else do I want to
You're
see?
a voice
I thought
from
you
the
said,
left.
"What else do you want to talk about?"
No.
I don't know.
No, what else do you
What
want to
else do
see
you wanna
from the
see
Democratic controlled? I mean, we got at least 2 years.
Yeah, and as far as I am concerned, I don't think that there will be a lot of change. And I think even, with Democrats controlling the presidency, the House, and the Senate, I don't think it's going to be like a major shift. I know there's a lot of people out there that, and when I say a lot, I mean they're obviously a small percentage, but a lot of people that think that like, oh, Biden won, now we're going to be communists here. Like, I don't think we're going to see any major changes like that.
Sure.
I think all of them will likely be with the main goal to be a benefit to the lifestyle of the people, to be an increase of our livelihood. But whether they really will be is, what we'll have to see.
Do any of Biden's cabinet picks bother you?
I have only looked at a few of them.
His Secretary of Defense sat on the board of Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, I saw that. That was one that I was like,
insane to me, you know?
Our budget for the military has always been one of the things that, like, especially when the war with Iraq, like, heavily de-escalated, I was like, cool, we have almost $1 trillion in our budget for defense. Do we need it? Do we need to keep buying these $13 million jets
when
every
we're
day?
spending 10 to 15 million a day in that country,
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah, and so
I've got a question about this. The Secretary of Defense. Why does it bother you that he sat on the board of Lockheed Martin?
Because that is the military-industrial complex that I think it was Eisenhower warned about, infiltrating. I mean, who do you think he's going to push for? You don't think he's still collecting a retirement from Lockheed Martin?
Sure.
I mean, these defense contractors are the ones that lobby for more wars. They're the ones that lobby for these. Look, we've designed these drones. You could just drop a bomb on a guy in Iran without ever, setting foot in the country. These bombs are super expensive, but the American people can afford it.
Yeah,
it is a major problem for me that the military-industrial complex has infiltrated so much that they are actually in the cabinet, and that's what it is. I mean, your loyalty is to the people paying you money.
Sure. And he's going to be able to push for more contracts.
Yeah.
Military contracts with Lockheed
Exactly.
Martin in the military. Sure.
Exactly. And his salary from the government is not overriding his, I'm sure, 6 to 7 figure retirement from Lockheed Martin. Probably 7-figure because of.
Yeah, that's a pretty high
His
position.
high position.
I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know a lot about the person or their, the rest of their history. So that's one of the things that I saw that was like, it's a red flag. But I don't know enough to say whether I hate the decision.
Also heavily involved in getting into Syria under Obama. So he's not a great pick. He's a horrible pick for especially peace-loving
where a lot
liberals.
Of Biden's picks have come from is people who were previously like junior cabinet members to Obama's cabinet.
Yeah.
So they're people that Biden has worked with. They're people he's familiar with.
Yeah, and so if we look at the Obama administration and what he did as far as getting us into Syria and Libya, it's not a great idea to be picking those same people from the cabinet,
I agree.
And and Janet Yellen's a freaking crazy person as far as Department of the Treasury. She's back to business as usual for sure. But to be fair, under Trump, something like 43% of all our money in this country was printed in 2020. That's inflation that you don't recover from without a major reset.
Yeah.
We are in deep crap because of that right there. And if Biden continues it, we're really in trouble.
Yeah.
That's Weimar Republic type of
Weimar Republic
super inflation. So, right on. What are we at, dude? An hour 4?
An hour and 5 minutes. 4 minutes.
So, it's good to have you on.
Thank you.
We had a little bit of an argument on Instagram, so I made sure to come in calm so that we were.
Don't worry, I was already calm.
I feel like we actually reached a few common ground places.
Yeah. Hopefully your parents' neighbors won't be messaging you after this saying you weren't harder on your commie cousin.
Who messaged you?
Don't want to say it. No, they didn't message me. Message you, saying should have been harder on him.
Oh yeah,
Because last time you said, would you vote for Bernie if it came to it? I'm like, yeah, probably would.
No, he wasn't mad about that.
The mask thing.
Your brother was upset about
because I
that.
won.
He was mad about the mask thing. He's very.
He's an anti-masker.
Oh my gosh.
Next
So, which I am too. I just don't get super aggressive about it with other people. They try and make me put one on to go to Walmart, and I'm like, I don't even like this store that much. So now,
I listened to
You
that
can
one
kick
where you
me out
talked
if you
about
want.
being at not BioLife, but the other pleasant place.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
See, and I thought that was funny because I go to BioLife, and the only time they ask you to take your mask off is when they take your temperature and they put the thing in your mouth.
Really?
And the rest of the time, you have it on the entire time. They
Really?
do finger scans for everything, and they always have. So it's like you walk in, you have the mask on, and you're just there, scan your finger. And then when they're putting the needle in your arm, they just ask you the last 4 of your social, and then they just
Really?
go for it.
Yeah.
They
Not
have like
Griffles.
labels and stuff. So it's like when you were saying that, I was like, what? Why the heck would they? How does that benefit them being in like
Yeah.
a health facility asking you to take your mask off so many times?
Frustrating. So I don't donate plasma anymore, but I didn't really care that much anyways. It was more to hang out with my wife. But
That's kind of what I do. I do it so I can buy video games.
so
Bad boy.
yeah, I feel like this was a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I was too easy on you, but I didn't feel like I was last time. I feel like we had a civil conversation. So anyone out there who's not thrilled with the way this conversation went, get a podcast, get your cousin on it, and scream at him all you want. But that's not how we run ours.
Yeah, I appreciated that after I came on last time. And the
on,
next
man.
time you're like, they said I wasn't hard enough on him, but I wasn't trying to start a fight.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you.
I just, yeah.
If you have a problem with it, come on the podcast and tell us why. We're not scared of that.
I think that we both made our differences of opinion known, and we did it in a civil manner. And if more people can't do that, then we're going to continue down the road we're on, which is a scary, scary road, if you ask me.
I'm just surprised you guys didn't come at me for posting Mitt Romney on my Instagram story.
Oh no, dude, the Mitt stuff doesn't surprise me, bro. And now that I know,
That is why I called you on, though.
Oh,
saw
I
your
knew.
story.
I knew.
It was.
I saw you were like one of the first people that saw it.
It
and
was-
then when you called me and I was at the gym, I was like, oh, I know what this is about.
Before it was surprising because I didn't realize your politics. But now I know your politics, and it's 100%. I get it. You like Mitt Romney. I mean, you think he's done good things for this country. That's something we can disagree on. You know.
Yeah. And that's also one of the things that I'm like, I don't love Mitt Romney, and I definitely don't agree with him on every level. And especially in that speech that I posted, I think that he does too much targeting his speech at Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Like he's not clear enough in saying that it's not, did Donald Trump help instigate it? Sure. But were there others that helped instigate that as well as each individual's personal responsibility? Absolutely.
Yeah. His personal grudge with Trump is pretty hard to watch for sure.
But I think like he's always hard on Trump, but when he supports Donald Trump, I like that he's still vocal about it. Those aren't the clips.
When did that happen? I didn't see that.
I don't know, man. I can
It's
find
all right,
them and
right?
send you some or whatever.
Yeah,
But,
send them over. I'd love to see that. for
like
sure.
there have been instances where Donald Trump has said something, they reach out to him for comment, and he says, "No, I agree with him." And those aren't like his clips. Those aren't the ones he's posting on his social medias or that are trending for him or whatever. But I like that he is willing to speak up when he doesn't support him, and that he's willing to say when he does support him, and he's not. I think that most of the time he is going to be against Donald Trump, but that he's willing to
Sure.
bite the bullet and support him.
Yeah,
if
send
need
some of
be.
those over for sure. I'd love to see those. But yeah. So all you who are listening, and I'm going to send this to Steve personally, this is how you have a conversation with the other side, okay? Me and Hogan are still cousins. We're still friends. We don't have to hate each other.
Well, speak for yourself.
We've made it clear that we disagree on a lot of things. I cannot stand Mitt Romney, but that doesn't have to transfer to Hogan just because he likes him.
Yeah.
And honestly, my hatred for Mitt Romney is a bit unchristian and needs to be reined in a little bit, you know? And
I have the most Christian of hatred for him.
I would whoop him right out of a temple. No.
Like, I hate him like Gordon B. Hinckley hates tattoos. They're ugly.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah,
This is-
no, and
this
I
is how you do
appreciate
it,
it.
folks, so.
That's why I'm always willing to come on and to message back and forth with you guys or whatever. Is that I understand you also have opinions that differ from mine, but I know that in conversation it's not going to be an attack either way.
And quite frankly, conversation like this is the only hope for at this point avoiding a civil war.
Yeah.
It's the only hope we have, because the majority of the country falls moderate. They're friends with somebody on the other side, and if you can have peaceful, open dialogue with them and elevate that peaceful, open dialogue instead of elevating extremism, people aren't going to divide to extremism.
And in preparation, which is me just thinking about what I'm going to say for this episode, I did think Hogan was actually pretty consistent as far as calling for nonviolence during both times.
Yeah.
And I was pretty
sure.
consistent when I said, riots don't bug me that bad. I just wish you were burning other stuff down, you know? So I think that we're both pretty consistent in what we think. We just have strong disagreements with. And so if you can look for those consistencies, if we can find clarity in what each other are saying, we don't have to be right. We just have to be clear on what the other person thinks. And that's what conversation is about.
Yeah, for sure.
And that being said, banning Trump from Twitter makes it hard to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, get him out. Get him off.
Get him off of there, Orange Man.
No, I didn't even follow him. He tweets way too much for me.
I'm
I
tired.
followed him for like one day, and then I got on, and it was like 40 posts in a single day, and I was like, yeah, not happening.
So there you have it, folks. Let's try and be more civil towards each other. This is mine and Hogan's call for civility.
Absolutely.
There's
Not me though.
There's major civil unrest brewing, and we can all do our part to stop it by talking to the person to the left or to the right of us.
That is one of the things that I've really appreciated about Biden, and whether people will accept it or not, is that immediately his messaging was like, let's try to work back toward unity. And we can disagree and whatever, but it doesn't need to be a point of contention as far as political ideals.
We'll see how that holds up.
Yeah.
We'll see how that holds up.
Whether it works out or pays off is, still the court is out. But.
May there be a peaceful future on its way.
All right, folks.
Thank
Issue
you again,
pushed.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
Consider this issue
Thank
pushed.
you. Yeah.
Y'all have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thanks, and God bless.